And now, coming to you live from the decentralized studios of Satoshi Crypto Research Labs, it's Blockchain After Dark.
And now, with stars over our heads, under the night lights of the city streets, this.
Hey everybody, and welcome to another episode of Blockchain After Dark. I wanted to show you guys something about what is going on exactly in the language of Satoshi. I stumbled across this rather interesting thing. Kind of interesting to me because I've been speaking about this topic for some time now. And the topic is, how exactly are we going to speak about money in the future if and when crypto takes over as a common daily form of currency that people use, right? And of course, it could be any crypto, but for the sake of discussion here, we're going to talk about Bitcoin. Why? Well, because Bitcoin is the market leader. Bitcoin is the first, is the biggest, is the most decentralized, etc., etc. So the likelihood is that it will at least have a future for the foreseeable future. And as such, I think it's important to consider how you'll be speaking when you use Bitcoins on a regular basis. But here's the thing. You won't be using whole Bitcoins. I mean, how many of you already today at $3,000 something a pop, how many people do you know that are on a daily basis sending back and forth whole Bitcoins for anything, right? How many of you would like to have a whole Bitcoin? How many of you would like to have 10, 100, 1,000 Bitcoin, right? Used to be a time you'd send 1,000 Bitcoins. It cost you very, very little. Now, you've got to have quite a bit of cash for that, right? So, I think it's important that we stop talking in Bitcoin value, because that is actually keeping away a huge chunk of the population who will be less and less likely to be able to afford a whole Bitcoin. The majority of the world will never own a whole Bitcoin as long as Bitcoin actually stays to its supposed limit of 21 million coins. Of course, I've discussed this before, that actually they could change this in the line of code. It's just by consensus that it stays at 21 million. But even if they ever upped it to 100 million or a billion coins, right? That still wouldn't be nearly enough for all of humanity to each own a whole coin. Which means people are never going to own a whole Bitcoin. You might, but 99% of humanity currently will never be able to own a whole Bitcoin. So if you own a whole Bitcoin, right, you are by definition, you're not in the 1%. You're like in the point, you're in the very, very small percentage, the point something percent. And good for you. If you don't own a whole Bitcoin, this is, and if you think that that's something that's interesting to you, this seems like a fire sale to me. I don't know. Maybe it isn't. Maybe we're going to see much cheaper Bitcoins in the future. I don't know. I certainly wouldn't give financial advice. That's not what I do. I just entertain, and I like to talk about crypto and blockchain and stuff like that. So if you're going to invest, of course, do your own research. Don't be a fool, right? It's just never invest in anything you don't understand. That's for sure. That's the only thing I would say about that. But what I would say is that on top of that, in this discussion about language, like if you keep speaking in whole bitcoins, you're basically you're gonna you're gonna see, maybe not for you personally, but there are going to be a lot of people who will be very depressed that they will never own a whole bitcoin. Rather than that, this can all be avoided by doing the inevitable anyway, which is speak in Satoshis already. You're not buying zero point 0.1 Bitcoin. You're buying 100,000 or whatever it is Satoshis. Buying a million Satoshis or whatever it is, 10 million Satoshis. Is that what 0.1? There's 100 million Satoshis in every Bitcoin, right? So think about that. For every Bitcoin, 100 million Satoshis. And that's the important part, really, of this particular meme I found. I thought it was really funny. And then I noticed there was another one in the same subreddit here called Satoshi Club. So if you go to reddit.com/r/Satoshi Club, you'll find a couple of memes on this apparently new subreddit. I thought this meme was also quite funny. Only the ultra wealthy trade whole bitcoins in 2030. So start speaking Satoshis. And it's Buzz Lightyear saying that to Woody, from Toy Story, the characters. It's a funny meme, but it is very meaningful. Meaningful. Why? Well, because if you are I don't want to say Bitcoin maximalist, because I think that that's a foolish philosophy in many ways. But if you are somebody who believes that Bitcoin will be worth, whatever it is, $1 million or more in the next 10 years or so, 12 years or whatever, 11, 12 years from now, if you think it will be worth even over $100,000, I mean, most people don't have that to put into a crypto, right? Let's say it's worth 100,000, $500,000, $1 million within 10 years, which is entirely possible, considering it went from 0.007 cents, to $20,000 in the first 10 years. So that's, when you look at the percentage gain of that, and yes, I know it's easier to go from that to that, from 0.007 cents to $20,000 than it is to go from $3,000 to $1 million. But it's not really that much harder, because all you need is more people in the market. And again, more people are more likely to buy into the market if they know how many actual useful bits of the currency they will have, right? So if they're getting 0.002 Bitcoin, right, because that's all they can afford or whatever, that seems useless to them. What the hell are they going to do with 0.002 Bitcoin? They don't have the understanding that's like 20 million Satoshis or something. Or whatever, 20,000 Satoshis, whatever the number is. Again, 100 million Satoshis per Bitcoin. So do the math with the decimal places, please. If, on the other hand, you tell them, here's 100,000 Satoshis, here's 500,000 Satoshis, here's 1,000,000 Satoshis, they will have a bigger understanding of that. And as it becomes a more valuable currency, you'll need fewer and fewer Satoshis to buy stuff, and you'll receive fewer and fewer Satoshis for the stuff you sell, because they'll become more and more valuable. If you ever have a situation where 1 Satoshi equals 1 cent, or 1 Satoshi equals $1, I mean, oh boy, that would be something. If you ever get to that point, if a Satoshi is $1, then a Bitcoin's 100 million. Right? If a Satoshi is a cent, a Bitcoin is still $1 million. That's what that means. So if a Satoshi would equal $1 million, there is a high likelihood that would greatly, first of all, it would have a different real price or value at the time, because if Bitcoin would ever get to $1 million a coin, it could significantly impact the strength of the dollar. It wouldn't necessarily take down the dollar, as all the conspiracy people or Bitcoin extremists will tell you, or fiat paranoia, but it would significantly impact it, just because that would mean that the value of Bitcoin is well into the trillions, and it could be even worth more than gold. Gold is what, 7, 8 trillion. So if Bitcoin would exceed, the value of gold at some point, which is possible, again, very possible, and I would argue likely at some point, then people just aren't going to be dealing in Bitcoins, right? And that's kind of my point. And interestingly enough, that is the point here on the Satoshi Club. They discuss here in their first, I guess, text post or whatever, the Satoshi Club standards, first primary suggestions. I like that. It's not rules, it's suggestions. Interesting. Proper use, suggestions of Satoshi in language. And they say, please quote prices in Satoshis, not Bitcoin. Use proper grammar when using Satoshis. Right? Use proper phonetic translation. I guess I don't know if they're having some fun there, but, I guess it makes sense. They're phonetically translate properly. And they suggest being creative with the use of Satoshis, but, obviously sticking to the good rules of language. And and even they suggest here, there you go. So this is something, there you go. Instead of saying my 2 cents worth, say my 2 Satoshis worth. That's, I guess, to to program people, I don't know, or just to get the culture going around it. And they ask for people to contribute to the discussion. So if you have any comments about that, by all means, check out this Reddit page, this Reddit comment. We'll put the link in the description. And participate. Let them know what you think. Personally, again, I think these memes, this first one here, there's this guy. If you're listening to this, by the way, so I'll describe it for you. There's a meme of a guy pointing his index finger, looking kind of smartly at the camera from the side, like he knows something or whatever. He's thinking something. He's pointing at his forehead. He's pointing at his temple, and he's saying, because you won't think, it says at the top of the meme, it says, think in Satoshis. And then below that it says, because you won't think in Bitcoins when they're 100 million a coin, right? And it's kind of funny, not hilarious, but funny. But it's a very good point, right? It speaks volumes. Like it says, you will not be trading whole Bitcoins unless you're fortunate enough to be somebody who has whole Bitcoins and will probably be extremely wealthy if you're not already in the future. So that's a very good point, right? Satoshis are going to be the common word for money. Hey, you got a few Satoshis I can borrow. Hey, man, I need a few Satoshis. Or how many Satoshis is that going to be? Maybe there'll be an abbreviated form of it. Maybe people will say Satosh, I don't know, Sats or Sats, I don't know. I'm sure there's going to be variations. People aren't always going to say a 3-syllable word like Satoshi. Maybe they will, but it is something to consider. Like, we're not going to be saying dollars forever, right? Nobody says any currency name forever, and they tend to change every few decades. And the US dollar, as a world reserve, has been doing that for, far longer than the average currency has survived. So it will be interesting to see what happens with the dollar and what happens if Satoshi really does become a standard currency that everyday people use, and they're going to be buying and selling things in Satoshis again. Like, yeah, they'll know it's part of a Bitcoin. They'll know it's, that there are people around the world who own Bitcoins, these mythical unicorns who have these Bitcoin things. But they will be earning their salaries in Bitcoin. They'll be paying their rent in Bitcoin. They'll be buying their groceries in Bitcoin. They'll be paying for their health care and their education and their clothes and their bills in Bitcoin, electricity and water and insurance and car insurance and homeowners insurance and city taxes and all those things will at some point be payable in Bitcoin. And as such, nobody will ever actually spend a whole Bitcoin on any of those things unless they're spending, hundreds or many, many millions of dollars. So you might buy a house with a Bitcoin at some point, or you might buy houses. Who knows how much Bitcoin will be worth? But if it's worth a fortune, then you'll probably not spend a fortune every day, right? Unless you're extremely, extremely fortunate, right? And that's your lifestyle. If you're a multi billionaire and you spend $1 million a day without thinking about it, okay, good for you. You have nothing to worry about with that. But if you're like most people, and money is a thing you need to deal with, then you are very likely going to be saying things with the word Satoshi. And just, making that clear. And I know I've gone on about it again, but first of all, I thought these memes were funny, and I thought maybe you'd want to see them. But it makes a lot of sense. So I hope you are all preparing for the inevitable future in your own way, whatever way you think it's going to be. Good luck to you on that. On my end, I'm certainly not suggesting anyone what to do, but what I am doing is I'm preparing for a future in which we are going to be speaking in Satoshis. And I'm preparing for a future in which cryptocurrencies, of a number of different kinds, will be readily available to you in your crypto wallet that you keep safe wherever you happen to have it. And that you are going to be basically, we're all going to be used to this topic and this concept in the very near future. I would say by 2030, like this meme says, there's a high likelihood that we will be speaking in Satoshis, and that you really will not be able to buy a whole Bitcoin by then unless you have a lot of money. So, something to bear in mind about the crypto market. Why do I think that we will see such high values of crypto again by that time? Well, I mean, as I've discussed, we see that again, it's gone up dramatically, so high, right? From 0.007 cents or whatever to $20,000, and that was in 9 years. It was really 8 years, but yeah, because it started in 2010, but there really wasn't much price trading going on in 2010. It was very, very, very little. It was, pretty rare. Like, you were just sending stuff back and forth, kind of between hobbyists. We were doing that. And now it's thousands of dollars, right? So even from 0.007 cents to $3,000, $3,500, that's a massive gain in 10 years. Massive, right? I mean, even that is historic in its own right, that a new asset class would do such a thing so quickly. That's historic. But it didn't go to 3,000. It went to 20, right? So that's why it's very likely that the Satoshis you buy today for practically nothing, compared to the Satoshis you will buy in the future, which will be not nothing. Each Satoshi will be worth, real money to you. At least that's my opinion. And I think it just makes sense to start speaking Satoshis. So, like the memes say, think Satoshi, speak Satoshi. I think it's a hilarious Reddit subreddit. And that's what I wanted to share with you guys today. What do you think? Let me know in the comments below. And, leave us a like if you liked it. hit the subscribe button or the notification bell to hear from us when we post new videos. Get the conversation going. You can certainly do that. We love it when people make comments, so feel free. And until next time, people, be well.